Hello everybody, how's it going today? Glowplasma 231 here, back in date about Weekly Shonen Jump, issue number 42 of 2025. I hope you are all doing well today. I know I am. I mean, we're talking about Weekly Shonen Jump. I read the last issue of Weekly Shonen Jump, number 41, like 2 days ago, and 2 days later I am making the next video in the series, which is like, being that I'm currently like 5 issues behind is pretty awesome, all things considered, so I'm happy. Also, like, just a good week of manga, all things considered. Of course, as you see here on my screen right now, we have 14 series out of Weekly Shonen Jump to talk about today, mainly adding one brand new manga to the roster. Of course, this manga is titled Someone Hurts. It is a manga by the author. I probably should have, like, figured out who this was written by first, but you know what, I wasn't thinking about that. By A. Yamano. I don't know if they are an experienced artist or really whatever they are, but we got a brand new, like, comedy manga in Jump about, like, one-take liner jokes and, like, also, like, maybe a little bit of a rom-com as well. It's just an interesting series that, like, I want to be interested to see how it goes and progresses throughout the general time of Weekly Shonen Jump. But to be fair, I'll talk about it in this video, and comedy is subjective, and to be fair, I was not really digging the comedy of this chapter. And also, I remember whenever this series came out, now 6 weeks ago, that's insane, I'm that far behind on Jump still. But there's this whole debate of people being like, I think this is really hitting the Japanese audience, like they're finding this hilarious and amazing. But over here, at least in the states where I reside from, bro, I don't get half of these references. Like, what do you want me to say about that, right? But either way, as I mentioned, I really don't have too much to ramble about before I hop into the video today, but just like, you know, let's just get into it. Like, it's a manga talkie time. Let's talkie the manga talkies. You know what I'm saying, right? But of course, if you guys do not know how this series works, today I'm going to be sitting down and talking about all 14 of the series I read out of Weekly Shonen Jump this week. And at the very end of the video, I will be going through and ranking all of them from what I thought was my favorite chapter of the week, all the way down to my least favorite chapter of the week. And this week, all of the 12 chapters in between them. From like, hey, you want to know what my 5th favorite chapter of the week is? Figure that out later, because to be honest, I haven't even ranked them yet, right? And I'll also be picking a character of the week and just picking like, hey, who was my favorite character? Who had the best showing? Who did I think was pretty neat? You know what I'm saying? And yeah, really without any further ado, I don't have too much else to say, so let's just hop into this one of Kagurabachi, chapter number 93. This chapter is titled Finishing Touches, and of course, I do a long-form Kagurabachi chapter review series on my channel where I think I talked about this series for like 26 minutes. So if you want to hear my thoughts on chapter number 93 of Kagurabachi, go check out that video at my Glowplasma YouTube channel. But I promise that's the only like shilling I'll do this entire video besides for the very end of it. You know what I'm saying? But either way, this is a chapter really just focusing on the battle between like, hey, remember the whole thing about Natsuki, Aruha, Hokuto, and Yura? Yeah, they're all continuing to fight each other, go back and forth, or really take a little bit of a break, and then they start getting back into the action. And the And then after all of their, like, battle stuff goes on, the latter half of the chapter is actually very interesting, as we learn 2 of the Hishaku members' names, Uran, the ice lady who was there, or we now know she's an ice lady, and her name is Uran. We didn't know either of those things before, but we know them now. She was the woman who was there whenever Kunishige Rokuhiro got murdered. And also, we learned the bald guy. The bald guy's name is Bingo. Pretty random, but like, okay, sure, Hokazono, I'll listen to you. And in the very, very end of the chapter is pretty much all of these Kabanabi sorcerers coming up and getting ready to face off against all of these Hishaku members as Ichiki, Kiri, Hakari, and Izami all head down to the bottom floor of the Kabanabi HQ, where the Shinichi Enchanted Blade is currently being held. And that was really the Kagurabachi chapter this week. There's a lot of, like, discussion whenever this chapter first came out, like, oh my gosh, is Hakari about to get, like, possessed by the Enchanted Blade? But of course, being that Kagurabachi is the one Jump series that I keep up with whenever I'm not reading Jump, I know that's not particularly the case. I'm sorry for spoilers. Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. It's something even better. So, I don't know if it's something, I don't really. It's a good reveal, you know what I'm saying? But yeah, that was really all there was to Kagurabachi this week. A very good chapter, but of course, being that I read this chapter 6 weeks ago, my sort of thoughts on it have dulled a little bit over time, right? But speaking of big bombastic series, let's talk about One Piece, chapter number 1160. And oh boy, this chapter is simply titled The God Valley Incident. Now, of course, we're still in the big Herald Rocks, all of that flashback currently going on right here, and we really just see the beginning of the God Valley incident, right? Of course, there's all these votes are like, hey, vote for who you think is going to be the favorite to win the competition this year, and there's all these things going back and forth. And also, last video, I made the incorrect summation that, like, oh, all of a sudden, Monkey D. Dragon ended up going through, and he ended up finding, Blackbeard and his mother. No, that actually wasn't the case. Who Dragon actually found was Shanks's and Shamrock's mother, and she's pretty much like, hey, get my 2 children off this island, like, please, you have to do it, like, I'm begging you. And really, from that part, we just see, like, a bunch of the citizens of the God Valley Island just getting massacred in the general game, pretty much, right? There's a lot of things like, oh man, look, Garland is doing so cool, doing all of this fairy stuff. Oh my gosh, look, Saint Gunko, who is called the Devoted Blade of God, is also doing very good into competition, and like, yeah, I'd say Gunko's doing pretty good. I like Gunko, you know what I'm saying? And at the same point, we see, like, Saint Somers being a complete douchebag. Like, there's this kid stuck up in a tree, and Somers is like, come down here, kid, and fall into my thorns that are currently underneath this tree. And the kid's like, no, I don't want to do it. And this kid's dad just, like, runs up being like, no, please, that's my son. And pretty much the whole idea is the kid starts to fall after Somers, like, kicks the tree, and the dad dives into the thorns to try to catch the child, and the child also falls into the thorns as well. And it's just like, I didn't like Somers. You think I like him even more now? Like, no, this guy's evil. I want to see him get his comeuppance. Like, please, I want to see this happen, right? But either way, at the same point, we get the whole idea of, like, Kuma's backstory also finally getting brought into this whenever Ivankov is on the rock, giving her a thing of, like, hey, don't waste your time dreaming of salvation from this sick game. We have to escape the game itself. And we see that Dragon ends up seeing this happening here in the moment, right? And Dragon's like, wow, these people still have hope, right? But as all this is happening, it's in the big thing of like, oh my gosh, the Rocks pirates are here, right? And oh my gosh, I don't believe it, the Roger pirates are here as well. And it's just like all of this chaos just coming on and coming on more. Eventually we see that Dragon ends up finding both Shanks and Shamrock and gets them out of the area pretty much. It's like they're both being very calm. And I'm guessing that he's going to end up like dropping Shamrock on the ground for Garland to find and like, oh, where did the other one go? And Dragon pretty much transports him over to Roger's ship or something akin like that. I'm guessing that's what's about to happen here. At the same point, there's this big thing of like Garland being like, well, we can't let them just rampage free, so let's us of the Holy Knights go ahead and start the fight, right? As we see that like, oh, look at this, Somers gets ready for this along with Garland and a few other people who I don't think that we necessarily know, but probably they get killed here if I was to guess, or they're still alive and just in Sacred Mary Jo themselves, right? But either way, all of this is going on, and there's one more big reveal at the end of the chapter where it's like, oh my gosh, wait, is that a cannonball flying through the sky? No, I don't believe it. The Navy hero Garp is here to save the day. And that's where we end off the chapter with Garp also arriving, making this competition. I think it's called the Manhunt. I didn't remember the name of it last video, but I think it's called the Manhunt, if I'm not mistaken. But we just see this competition has just gotten so much more wild with the Rocks Pirates, the Roger Pirates, the Knights of God, and also Garp all appearing. Like, this is like the One Piece flashback we've waited for so long, and it's crazy that we're actually getting it, right? One Piece, a crazy good chapter, so many moving and complex parts, and really, out of this chapter, I'm just most interested to know how Dragon becomes a revolutionary. Like, of course it makes sense. Like, he sees all this carnage. Like, how could he not be like, this is bad. Maybe I shouldn't be supporting this, all things considered, right? But also, like, what happens to Shanks? What happens to Shamrock? That's really what I'm most invested in currently in this flashback, at least until Harold gets here and we get more of what this flashback is actually supposed to be about. But One Piece, just a crazy good chapter, like, I legitimately don't know what to say. It's just, there's so much going on. How does Oda do it, right? And speaking of series that I don't know how people pull off so many cool moments, let's talk about Ichi the Witch, chapter number 50. This chapter is titled, Those Who Defy. Oh, I'm getting like shakes and like, oh, that's just very cool, you know what I'm saying? Either way, the waiter, Hitsuji, just got pretty much a hole blown in his chest by Desscaras, right? And really, a lot of this chapter is Hitsuji just being like, hey, I'm a normal guy, and Desscaras being, no, you're not, as she goes through and, like, cuts off the guy's head and does all this various stuff, right? And, of course, he's wielding the human hater, or the world hater magic staff and doing all this various stuff, right? And eventually, of course, to question Hitsuji, Desscaras summons her magic Gonkola, or Gonkala, whatever it's called. It's Golconda. Yeah, it's Golconda. I know, I can read. Congratulations, everybody, right? But either way, she summons Gonkala to pretty much come over and just be like, hey, interrogate him. But Hitsuji, like, grabs his severed head, puts it back on his neck, and he sticks out his tongue, as we see his tongue has, like, eyes and mouths on it, right? And it just says, Alpha. As all of a sudden, Gontonda, like, turns around and actually puts Desscaras in the chair, almost reversing the power of the magic there, right? And of course, the whole idea of Gonkola is in, like, hey, what is it that you fear most? But of course, like, Desscaras is just so cool. She's got full control over this magic and just says, like, no, that's not happening. And she pretty much tells Gonkola off, and, like, Gonkola sneaks back up to her like, I'm sorry, mother, I'm sorry for doing all of that, right? And it's just a really cool moment where Desscaras is like, hey, what was that, like, magic manipulation or something? Like, a way of reversing orders? Like, how dare you pick up my poor, sweet Golconda like that, right? Like, you're a jerk, right? And Hitsuji's just like, no, you are the one who just abused your magic using its power, right? As pretty much we understand that Hitsuji's whole thing is, he does not want magics enslaved by humans. He views it as a very terrible thing because, as he says, between magic and human, there can be no true bonds. And eventually a hand comes out of a portal to pretty much pick Hitsuji up, and Hitsuji ends up leaving the area here. Not before Desscaras comes through and just, like, completely stabs him in the head. And the next shot that we see him in, like, half of his head is just cut off, and it's really funny to see this guy be, like, so regular about it, right? But of course, the reason Desscaras got so angry was because that Hitsuji just says, like, hey, this peace won't last. Sooner or later, the Lord World Hater, will free all of the magics. They'll stand in revolt against their oppressors, and humanity will be erased from existence. Every last trace warped out, just like your poor little brother was. Of course, giving us the hints of this guy sucks, I want this guy dead now, right? He also mentions that he's actually not human. He's sort of in these human constraints of these weak, feeble creatures. Eventually, he goes sees the World Hater. They have a little bit of a conversation. He's just like, hey, are the seeds planted? And Hitsuji's like, yes, Lord, the World Hater. The seeds are planted. I'm so happy about all of it, right? Until eventually we just get this whole idea where Hitsuji, like, transforms into almost what seems to be like a horse or some, like, other kind of long-pawed beast creature with, like, this forked, almost like fish tail, but with these, like, massive paws. He just says, like, hey, let us ensure that it sees the end of humanity, Lord World Hater. In a world, there can be no future where humans and magics coexist. As the very last 2 pages of the panel, we pretty much have an entire 2-page spread where we see Jiki Shiron, and of course the prophecy magic who is inhabiting Jiki Shiron's body, holding hands together, of course, while Jiki Shiron is inside the library of her magic circle. And it's a very interesting panel as we just see the 2 hands sort of, like, clinching together. But then we see the hand belonging to Jiki Shiron disappears, as in the moment the prophecy magic, of course in her pajamas still, is just sitting there, like, gripping both of her hands together, trying to feel that connection. And there's just something so raw and emotional about that final moment. Like, the rest of the chapter is really cool. You're telling me Desscaras stocks didn't go up even further than they already were? She looked amazing this chapter, and not to mention just the way we ended off alongside Jiki Shiron having this moment of, like, magic and these 2 are, like, coexisting, and, like, are they coexisting because of a love for one another, or, like, what is really going on here? It's so very intriguing. Ichi the Witch, gosh, this manga is just too good. I don't understand how they pull it off, right? But either way, good chapter of Ichi to Witch, and now we're going to move on to the new series, or I say new series, it is the new sequel series we're going to be talking about next, of course, in Jujutsu Kaisen Modulo, chapter number 2. This chapter is titled Deterrence, and this is a very interesting chapter, mainly for the fact of like, hey, we get a color page being of it, that's always pretty neat and cool, right? But this chapter is a very lore-heavy chapter, all things considered, as there's just like a lot of moving parts in this chapter. We not only get introduced to another one of the Sumerian people named Cross, who is actually the one who is on the cover of this series, if I'm not mistaken, and is also the one who is, on the ship. It's not Maru, the air guy. I thought they were one and the same, but we sort of see like Maru sort of like wears this headband. It's sort of like right next to his ears, and like his hair sort of like spreads out in the back. But Cross, this other Sumerian, sort of has it up more in a ponytail, pretty much, right? And it's this very interesting thing of like where these two diplomats are talking with this Sumerian guy and also Cross, and they're going through discussing all of these various things. And oh, it's like weird, they're speaking Japanese, and there's like a lot of moving parts here that I really don't know how to properly articulate, all things considered. But eventually we get to the whole idea of, oh no, there is this other big Sumerian who has these like big devil horns who people are like freaking out of the presence of, because like, oh, it almost feels like Ryomen Sukuna like level incident from 68 years ago or something like that, right? Like we understand why it's like this big incident. And eventually this one person just says like, hey, well, they want one of their people to pretty much stay here on Earth and learn about the Earth people. Well, let's assign them to the team of the Okotsu siblings, right? Of course, our main characters, Yuka and Tsurugi. After the whole thing that happened last time, Yuka and Tsurugi are arresting the random person who was like human trafficking and all of that various stuff. And we also see that this guy gave them a little bit of information about all of these various things, like, oh, aliens, why it all matters, and all of this stuff. And he pretty much explains that, like, hey, above a mountain up in the sky, pretty much, it's the Kuriyama Highlands in Nagano Prefecture. That's where the Sumerian ship is actually being landed all the way above them there, right? And hey, at 8 p.m. tomorrow night, pretty much like, hey, what's going to happen? They need food, so there's going to be a time when the domain barrier that like covers it is going to let up, so you're going to be able to see the ship, all things considered, right? And there's also just this weird thing of where it almost seems like this guy is trying to be redeemed through like his actions of being like a good guy here in the moment. Honestly, there's just so much. It's such a dense chapter. Like I call One Piece a dense series. This chapter of Modulo there's just so much to it, right? Well, eventually what happens is Tsurugi and Yuka go up to this mountaintop, and as they're sort of going around, they're thinking about the ring and all of this other various stuff, until they get all the way to the top, and they're just like, hey, that's not all. Pretty much, we got to do this by ourselves. Our grandma and grandpa are gone, so if anybody's going to have to deal with this, it's going to have to be us, right? And both of them just think like, hey, I have to be like, and of course, Tsurugi thinks like, I have to be like Maki Zenin, and you could just think like, hey, I want to be just like Yuta Okotsu. Just this whole idea of their grandparents who they looked up to, they want to follow in their footsteps. Honestly, a pretty cool moment, all things considered, right? Along with this spaceship in between both of them. Cross is down here, like where all the food supplies are getting ready to go back up, and Maru comes up being like, hey, Cross, it's been a while, pretty much, right? And Cross is just like, hey, what are you doing out over here? And he's like, hey, isn't it obvious, like, all of these humans like us Sumerians, like, why don't we just, like, go out and, like, get some breakfast tomorrow morning? It's pretty cool, like, there's so many awesome things about all of this, right? And Cross is like, no, you have to learn more about, like, conflict and coexistence, and Maru's like, no, conflict is wrong, all of these very things considered. And it seems like Maru definitely looks up to Cross, but Cross has this way of going around everything to where he's just like, no, I'm busy, I don't care about any of that, right? Well, eventually, we cut to the very end of the chapter as we see that Cross is standing on top of a building somewhere, and for some unknown reason, Tsurugi comes up next to him and thinks that he's Maru, being like, hey, if you hang up here, like, people are think you're going to jump and, like, call the cops on you, right? And he's like, hey, don't you have rules on your planet about stuff like that? And Cross is like, no, shut up, don't talk to me, and then, like, teleports out of here, and Tsurugi's like, what is this problem? And that's where we end the chapter of Jujutsu Kaisen Modulo. I'm having an issue because, like, it's such a good chapter, and I really feel like I didn't talk about it properly, being that there was, like, so much stuff that went on, but it was a good chapter. It was just one that's really hard to discuss just because, like, oh my gosh, there is so much moving on, so much going, like, cross Maru, like, what is all the things here? Who is this big guy? What's the goal going on here to be? I expect we're going to be getting more of that next chapter, but yeah, as far as I can say right now, just good, full of everything chapter, pretty much, right? But that's Jujutsu Kaisen Modulo. And now, moving on to the brand new series in Weekly Shonen Jump this week, Someone Hurts, Chapter number 1. Again, this series is by A. Yamano, and this chapter is titled On Air Name, El Potato. Okay, this is one of those chapters where I can't fully discuss everything going on here because there is just, like, so much going on, right? Our main character's name is this pretty much a guy. His name is Mime Fukumori, and he is a second-year high school student. He is very popular. He is good at almost everything he does, except for one thing. He's very bad at comedy, right? And we see that one of his favorite things is listening to this radio show called the Monday Midnight Talking that airs at 3 a.m. every Monday morning. Or I guess Monday night, so actually Tuesday morning, but like, whatever, like, who really cares, right? As it's this whole idea of, like, hey, along with him at school is this girl named Kurage Mizuo, right? And Mizuo and Mime sort of have this thing back and forth where they both listen to this comedy show. And as we're going to get revealed later, there's this person named El Potato who is very, like, famous on this show because there's a segment where they pretty much read out these one-liners that people come up with. Like, one of the prompts that they give here in the moment is like, hey, the one-line improv corner. And pretty much the prompt is, what would a trendy high school girl be like as a moving lady, right? And it's pretty much all of these various things of just like, hey, people send in their responses that, and then they get read pretty much, right? And I honestly thought there was a really funny one here where it was just like, hey, she'd have a tattoo that said this side up, handle of care. Wow, that's really good. It's really funny. Probably one of the best jokes in this chapter, besides for what I'll mention at the very end. It's not even meant to be like a proper joke, all things considered, right? But either way, this is submitted by this person named El Potato. As we'll learn here in a few pages, Mizuo is actually this El Potato person, right? And through the process of all of this, she pretty much says like, hey, I'm only ever going to fall in love with somebody who's funnier than El Potato is, so funnier than me. And there's this whole little bit of like an expectation like, oh, hey, Mime is getting to the point where he's getting taught by Mizuo to become this better comedian, and eventually he submits all of these one-liners. One eventually gets read on the radio show, and he's super happy about it, right? And eventually this just goes into all of this, and Mime is like, wow, this is cool, like I can actually go and do this, right? And pretty much it's just this whole idea of like, at the end of the day, the two of them now have these matching pins that you get from, or these matching keychains that you get from participating on the show, right? And it's just like a nice, really wholesome chapter about all of that. The joke I was mentioning earlier is at a certain point, Mime and Mizuo meet up together outside like 3 a.m. in the morning to both listen to the show together. They're sharing each other's like earbuds, and they're also pretty much like sharing the same jacket, like both huddled up next to each other because like, hey, Mime is very nervous and Mizuo wanted to be there for him, right? And it's this whole idea, like, whenever they're getting ready to head out, Mizuo is just like, hey, what now? You want to go hit up Costco? And for some reason, that just, like, sent me rolling for some reason, especially with Mime's response of, like, Costco isn't open. And you couldn't even just stroll into Costco either. Like, what are you talking about? Like, I've never been to a Costco, but I've heard the horror stories and the amazing tale of the land that Costco is. So it's just very funny to be like, oh, that's pretty neat, right? But it was an interesting chapter of Someone Hurts. I did like the whole idea of like, hey, building up this guy's comedy routine, making it a rom-com at the same time. Like, very interesting premise. Like, don't get me wrong. It's just like, yeah, I don't fully know what to think about it. A good chapter. I'll be interested to see where it goes next time, but I don't really have too many like big in-depth thoughts right now on it, right? But with Someone Hurts out of the way, let's move on to Harukaze Mound, chapter number 13. This chapter is titled Nagiharu the Outfielder. And to be completely open and honest with you, that is what this chapter is about, is Nagiharu being the outfielder for his team, right? Pretty much, you can't always rely on just one pitcher, so one of these other guys named, I think his name is like Yumo or something like that. Yuma is going to be the pitcher here for this match, and eventually gets this whole idea where, like, they're not looking very good, like, they end up giving up a few bats because, like, man, this team is very good at baseball, and I mean, they are the reigning champions, and eventually they end up giving all these bats, and Nagiharu from the outfield has to be like, guys, we have to have better communication, we got to figure all this various stuff out, and really picks up the rest of the team, eventually to this whole point of, like, hey, guys, we've got to tighten up our outfield game, like, no problem, we'll go ahead and get done. And the very end of the chapter is just Kingo being like, hey, Nagiharu, very inspirational speech there. We are going to win this because I know with the power of you on our team rallying us together, we're going to be able to do it really well, right? A very good chapter of Harukaze Mount, all things considered. I just don't have much to say about it. Like, I love the idea of Nagiharu being this character who can get very serious, but also is, like, very comedic. Like, whenever his team is down to dumps, being like, hey, guys, like, whatever. Let's communicate better and let's beat their asses, pretty much, right? And it's just a very fun character that Nagiharu is, and even though this chapter wasn't fully focused on him, I just can't wait to see how he starts to interact with, like, Kingo and all of these other people here soon, because it's like, it's just a very also good way to make me care about all of these other characters in this series, right? Like, I want to see Kingo bat, and I can't wait till he does it and shows everybody what he's made of. And by Nagiharu rallying the entire team together, showing them, like, hey, this is what's going on, it's just written really well. And yeah, this was a very good chapter of Harukaze Mound. I just don't have too much else to say about the actual chapter contents itself. So Harukaze Mound, pretty good. Akane Burrows at chapter number 11. I think we're going to have a stretch here of chapters I just don't have a whole lot to say about, because this chapter was about, like, hey, you know Nobunaga? Remember, he now has a brother all of a sudden. Also, this is Akane Burrows at chapter number 11, titled The Akane Bros. Oh my gosh, I was shaking my arms around trying to be funny of, like, oh my gosh, it's, like, so crazy and insane, and I just hit my elbow straight into the table. Oh, that really hurt. I'm going to keep all that in there, too, because, I think just the pain of the sound of, like, me hitting the table and bumping the microphone stand came through the audio, I'm guessing, but, like, ooh, that didn't feel very good, right? But either way, it's about, like, hey, Mitsuhide Kazama is here. He's pretty much the favorite child out of the, like, Nobunaga Kazama family, pretty much, right? And going through all of this stuff, there's this back and forth between the two of them, and eventually gets to the whole idea of, like, hey, these two want to run together because that's what it means to run, is to run as family. But even though it's like, hey, you taught me to be this very strong runner, so I need to be somebody who runs for the sake of his friends, pretty much, not like you. And it's a fine thing. I just don't care about Nagiharu, and I just don't care about Nobunaga and his brother. Like, I just don't know what else to say. The end of the chapter was pretty neat. It's pretty much just being like, hey, Haneshiro, one of the other runners on Odani's team, is getting ready to take up the 5th leg of the race, right? And it's going to be very interesting because it's going to be him, it's going to be Hara, and then it's going to be Nobunaga in the final leg of the race, of course, running against his brother Mitsuhide. It's fine. Like, I don't know. It's good. I just don't have too much else to say about it. It's not, to be honest, it's not really that good. I don't care about Mitsuhide. I don't feel any reason for me to be like, I need to root for this guy, so yeah, sort of is what it is. Akane Bros, I sort of think I know where your place is going to be this week in the ranking scale. You know what I'm saying? But with that, we finally get to the last of the newbie series in Ping Pong Peril, chapter number 10. This chapter is titled Conclusion with 2 exclamation points. This is a big deal. And to be fair, I honestly expected this whole little battle between both Tiara and Taiki-sensei to be much more of, or Suji-sensei, my bad, to be much more of, like, a bigger event going on here. Is, like, to be fair, it's very quick. We're like, oh, hey, all of a sudden, where Tiara just scores a point on Suji, and he just does it. He's pretty good at moving the ball and doing all of the control, and it's like, wow, okay, I didn't expect that. Oh, he finally gets 7 points. Oh, he's getting 8 points. He gets 9. He gets 10. And then it's finally 11-10, and Tiara just needs to score 1 more point, and he goes through, and he ends up doing it, right? And eventually we get just to the whole idea where Mitsuki's just like, all right, there we go. Tiara Mikado wins. Congratulations. Suji-sensei, I'm sorry, but you lost this match. But Suji just starts to freak out, being like, no, not yet. I haven't won. As he, like, bends over and grabs the money off of, like, the desk where everything is. Like, hey, this is my money. I'm not letting anybody steal it. I will still have my money in Momo's body. I will have it all. And eventually Tiara's like, hey, accept it. Like, you already lost. Like, what are you talking about? And eventually we just get to the whole idea where Suji just gets in Tiara's face, and eventually Mitsuki comes over, rips open, like, her skirt here in a moment, takes off her high heels, and as Taiki comes over to punch Tiara in the face, she just goes through and kicks him in the side of the head, and just, like, knocks him on the ground, all of the money out of his grasp, and Tiara's like, what the fuck just happened? Bro, what in the world, right? As pretty much she just explains, like, hey, my job is to make sure the match runs smoothly. So if this is what I need to do, then that's what I need to do. The match already ended. You deserve that money. It's your money, pretty much, right? And eventually, it's also explained, like, hey, she has been there for every single match that Tiara's done. Whenever Tiara did the whole thing of, like, hey, fighting against the bartender guy, she was actually there hiding in the outside of the room just in case anything happened, right? But she also knew that she could trust that guy, so she didn't need to, like, go up and get in all of his business, right? But all things considered, all of a sudden, a robot bursts through the window of the gymnasium where they were playing ping pong. As it pretty much, this robot just says, like, hey, Tiara, congratulations for reaching rank 5. And Tiara's like, what in the world is that? And it's pretty much explained to be the ping pong parrobot. And pretty much, it's just like a bot that does ping pong parrot-related things, right? As the whole idea is the robot just says, like, hey, nice to meet you. This is the ping pong parrot, administration is speaking to you. This is your congratulatory rank 5 badge. And it's like, hey, we always enjoy watching you play, Tiara Mikado. You're not just skilled, you're tenacious. We are expecting great things from you. And so we hope to meet again soon. And the robot just leaves here in the moment, giving Tiara this little badge here, right? And also, Mitsuki just thinks, like, wow, this is actually crazy. Like, not only did Tiara just win 8 million, but also, it's crazy that Tiara is already in with the Ping Pong Parrot admins. As we just get some narration at the very end of the chapter saying, it's at this point that Tiara's story begins to move in a very unexpected direction. And oh, this has me very interested. Is it moving towards cancellation in the Shonen Jump acts? Or is it just moving to, like, oh, we're adding, like, a whole administration of evil ping pong users to this series? Like, I don't really know, and I'm sort of interested to what's going on here, but I thought Ping Pong Peril had a very interesting and good chapter this week, but just like, wow, that was a lot of stuff happening there, right? Yeah, good chapter nonetheless. I did like the very big takedown of Suji in this chapter of, like, hey, he is a very sore loser, and Mitsuki just put him in his place. Some good manga, you know what I'm saying? But with Ping Pong Barrel out of the way, let's move on to Himaten chapter number 58. This chapter is titled Hug, Hug, Himari. And really, this chapter is a Himari chapter. It's a Yoshino chapter. And it's all about Himari and Iamori having to fit through all of these feelings that they are sort of getting for each other. Of course, Iamori isn't very aware about how he feels for Himari in the moment, but it's getting to the whole idea of, like, Himari wants to bring up all of these things to Iamori and doesn't really think that she's as valuable to him as she views her to him, pretty much, right? If that sort of makes sense in what I'm saying there, right? It's, of course, like, oh, Kana went into Iamori's room, and that's, like, sort of a little bit of a scandalous and a weird and crazy thing. And Yoshino is just a little upset, like, Iamori won't tell me of this. He didn't tell me that his teacher is his neighbor and all of that other various stuff, right? And eventually, like, it's just sort of, like, bring her down during one of these meetings that she's having with her manager. And eventually, it's to the point where Iamori is supposed to be having a cleaning day today, right? And Iamori just thinks, like, hey, it's cleaning day for Yoshino's place, and, like, suddenly it's really cold outside, right? It's like, man, it's been almost half a month since our Labor Day date. And Yoshino hasn't mentioned what happened, and I've been feeling like weirdly self-conscious, of course, about the hug, and then about all of the events of like Kana being in Iomori's room, and Iomori's like, I'm so thankful Kana didn't say anything about the swimsuit incident, like, my life has been way too exciting recently, like, I need to tone all of this down, right? So eventually it gets to the whole idea where Iomori gets over there, and Yoshino's room is like laying on the ground, and Maru's on the ground here, and they're like, oh my gosh, like, hey, Maru's getting so much bigger every time he's here, right? And pretty much there's this little bit of like a coy thing that Yoshino tries to do, being like, oh, he really only likes the people that I like, pretty much, right? Like, I don't know why, though, he like doesn't like my manager, he always attacks her, but Maru's always so nice with you, Iomori, right? Sort of trying to bring the two of them together a little bit, right? As all of this happens, and Yoshino's thinking like, hey, like, why are you still keeping your distance from me, Iomori? Like, it's warmer on this side of the room. I want to be close to you, like, whenever I first got Maru and all of that various stuff, right? And I was like, hey, is Iomori, like, secretly didn't want that hug from me? Like, what's all going on here? And it's this thing where both of the two of them are feeling these conflicted thoughts until eventually, by the end of the chapter, there's this little bit of an event where Iomori has come over to cook Yoshino some food, and they're getting ready to sit down and eat it, and Maru just comes through and just causes chaos all around the place, right? And it's one of these things to where Himari tries to reach out to catch Maru, but of course Iomori's in the way, and Iomori sort of ducks out the side, and it's this whole idea where Yoshino's like, hey, why did you lean away from me, Iomori? And Iomori's like, well, it's just because we almost ran into each other. And she's like, oh, so does that mean you didn't like it? And Iomori's like, well, like what? And he's like, the hug. And he's like, why are you bringing that up now? And eventually they have a little bit of a conversation of like, hey, are you trying to keep your distance from me and all that other various stuff? And like, hey, if that was inappropriate, I really apologize. And Iomori's like, hey, you're acting way too formal. Like, I never thought about it that way. And he's just like, hey, you work really hard, so I get why you want attention sometimes. And to be fair, I'm totally okay with that. But I'm just a normal high schooler who happens to be your house cleaner. And just getting a hug from you was just so overwhelming, I just had no idea how to react. And Iomori's like, oh, I'll just go get dinner, sit down, and do all of that stuff, right? And of course, this is when Himari finally, like, puts it all together. Like, hey, I'm still in Iomori's mind, but I'm still that same unbeatable high school girl, and not somebody who is on his level, right? And eventually gets to this whole idea where he's like, hey, here's your hot pot. I thought I'd make it since it was cold out. And eventually she's just like, hey, Iomori, do you mind, like, sitting next to me while we eat meals instead of, like, just standing there? And Iomori's like, sure, I mean, why not? And they just have a very nice conversation where eventually Himari just is like, hey, how about this? Can I just get, like, another hug sometime whenever I want an energy boost? And Iomori's like, sure. I guess if you needed to, like, I have no reason to, like, say no, pretty much, right? And it's just a nice little thing where he's like, it just depends on the situation. I'll have to figure out how I feel later. A very good chapter of Himaten with a very nice emotional core, and just a good chapter of the series, man, and definitely better than whatever we had last week. Let me just say that for sure. Himaten was a very good chapter, but I just don't have too much else to say about it, because, like, yeah, I don't know. But with that, next up is Ultimate X's Kyoshi, chapter number 60. This chapter is titled, Let's Stay at Hitsugi's House. It's weird because we have the evil Hitsugi now, and we have the really good Hisugi family, right? Really just to blaze through this chapter because there's not a really whole lot to it. We learn, of course, that Sosuke and Kyoshi both learn that each other's parents have passed away due to some manner of things about demons and all of this various stuff, right? And in the process of this, there's this mystery of why Kyoshi's preset power has disappeared, right? And we pretty much learned that, like, oh my gosh, like every other manga that has like this natural spiritual power system, it flows through the body in a path of some kind. Like, oh my gosh, it's like chakra, Naruto, or any of the other power-up abilities. I legitimately can't think any besides like chakra right now that had like a special theme around it, but like, yeah, either way, preset power is the same exact thing. You have your preset power source, which is like in your heart, and then it pretty much travels all around your body, and pretty much, Kyoshi's preset power path short-circuited, so hey, it's not very good, but pretty much it's explained by Kyosuke, who just is like, hey, normally it seems like you would have fried it, but somebody healing you and keeping you stable actually helped, and like, oh wow, Akari doing her thing actually helped out Kyoshi a whole lot, right? eventually getting to the whole point of, like, you'll be fine, just rest for a month, let me do, like, the rest of our other, like, exorcist training techniques to you, like, to keep you up nice and healthy, and you'll be perfectly fine, Kyoshi, right? He's like, hey, but no matter what, don't use any preset power, but you can still train a little bit, right? So, of course, this also leads to Sosuke then being like, hey, let's the two of us train then, pretty much, right? And we have this really cool moment where they pretty much go off into the woods and like, hey, let's just spar out here, go and do some martial arts training, and we've never fought one-on-one before like this, so let's just go through and have a really good time. And, of course, this whole idea of, like, hey, Sosuke's like, hey, when it comes to martial arts, I'm not going to lose to the likes of you, pretty much, right? But we just go through, the two of them go through in battle, and eventually, Kyosuke just sort of is sitting there in his house thinking about his wife and like, hey, Misono, and he has this very nice conversation being like, hey, Misono, you were right. And of course, we just see a little bit of flashback where she's like, man, Sosuke is a genius, like, I know he'll become a great exorcist someday. As Kyosuke just thinks like, hey, he exorcised a top-ranking demon lord, like, our son is really incredible. It's almost scary, he's more and more like you every single day. And after focusing wholly on training since that one singular day, he's finally made a friend. It's that boy who you gave your life to protect as well. I know, what a strange twist of fate. Even without you in the world, you continue to live on inside of our little Sosuke. With thoughts of you in his heart, he's moving forward. With his friend. As we see both Kyoshi and Sosuke tired on the ground, just laying there, arms sprawled out. And we see, of course, the two of them are panting, but they both have a massive smile on their face at the same exact time. Just a good chapter. We get through everything like, hey, Kyoshi has his preset power back now, like, don't need to worry about it. And also, we just have a really nice moment focusing on Sosuke, who I think is my favorite character in Ultimate Exorcist Kyoshi. I mean, he had such a cool moment with his water abilities fighting the Ice Devil. Like, it was such a cool moment. And now seeing his evolution as a character here in chapter number 60, it's really awesome. I'm loving Ultimate Exorcist Kyoshi right now. And the more Sosuke we get, in my opinion, the so much better for this series. Ultimate Exorcist Kyoshi had a great chapter this week, don't get me wrong. And with that, now let's move on to the final 4 series of the week as we move on to Akane Banashi chapter number 174. This chapter is titled, Don't Waste It. And hey, we got a pretty cool cover page with Akane on it. It's Akane Arakawa. It's pretty cool, right? But either way, this is a crazy chapter. I just want to talk about the entire thing because it's such a good chapter of manga. So we start off with Tyson pretty much in the room with Akane being like, hey, why did you stay out all night last night without coming back to the room? Like, you knew today was the day of the competition, so, like, why did you go and do all of that, right? And he's like, hey, in this day and age, being insanely reckless doesn't really get idealized anymore, which I thought was a very fun statement for him to make here in the moment. As Akane is just, like, panting in the bed, just, like, putting a hand on her forehead, and we just see Tyson's like, hey, why are you pushing yourself like this? And, of course, he's like, I know what Master Isho told you, but Master Shomei didn't give you a time limit for anything. You don't have to rush through everything like this. And on top of that, you're also focused on beating your 2 rivals. Like, you limit yourself on the pile of pressure. And what are you doing all of this for? And Akane opens up her eyes as she just says, I don't have enough time. And Tyson just looks over shocked at hearing this, right? There's another one of these little moments where we see that a lady is just going over and talking about Akane Arakawa to one of the producer guys, right? And this girl's like, hey, is it really safe to put her out there on the set pretty much? And this guy's like, hey, normally we wouldn't, but we're all the way out in Odawara currently, and we can't easily find a replacement on short notice. And also, there has to be someone to fill the final slot on the live broadcast, so it's not very good. He's like, I know, but he's like, hey, don't worry, it'll be fine at the end of the day. And he just explains like, hey, there's no extra or final round after this, so they just go in order, and whoever has the most points at the end wins. And in the preliminary round, the 2 contenders stood head and shoulders above the rest. And now that both of them have finished, both the audience and the TV viewers know we just have to play out the string until the very end, pretty much, right? As we just see Tyson is hearing this conversation, of course being there to support Akane, and he just sort of thinks like, wow, just play out the string, then they don't know who she really is. As at the same time, we hear that Akane is telling Tyson a little bit of a story in the room. And she just explains like, hey, my master collapsed when I was a Zinza. And also, as we see some gray panels, of course, flashbacks within a flashback, and we see one day in the winter, Akane is on the phone with somebody who we understand is Makelu Anisan. And he's pretty much, yes, I'll go over it again. Just take a deep breath and listen, Akane. Our master's surgery was a success, and the cancer hasn't spread. However, the result of all of this is a case of psychogenic aphonia. Basically, he can't talk. And he just explains like, hey, this doesn't mean that Master's completely incapable of speech, but the more you rely on your voice for work, the longer the recovery takes. So if he is going to focus on healing, it's probably best if he steps away from Rakugo. As we understand, the time constraint that Akane is really feeling isn't about Isho, it isn't about Shomei, it isn't even about her rivals. As Akane just says out loud, you can't always expect that the people you care about will always be there when you need them. Standing in place means losing ground. As we see in the moment, Tyson just stands up, being like, well, you should probably do something to improve your condition here. I'll go out and I'll buy you a cold pack, or like a Pocari drink, or something like that. And as Tyson just goes and walks away, a voice almost evocative of Rakugo speaks behind him from Akane, just saying, don't waste it on me. As Tyson just feels this pressure around him in the moment, he just turns around being like, oh, what are you talking about? As Akane just laughs, kind of like, ha. But anyway, I realized something. As she just thinks, that was a shackle. As we see, Akane Arakawa is currently walking on the stage here at the competition. And everybody's freaking out like, oh my gosh, there she is, right? And in the audience, one of these guys like, hey, wasn't that your favorite, Tomo? Like, it's the Akane Arakawa girl, right? And he's like, I just thought she was good in the prelims. Like, nothing too much to really worry about here. And like, hey, too bad she was just so unlucky to have to go after those other two people. Because, like, they were really good. I don't think she is going to stand up. As we cut back into the flashback, as Akane just thinks like, hey, I wasn't necessarily wrong. What they were saying was actually the same thing. Of course, thinking about what both Isho and what Shomei both want from her. As she just thinks like, hey, but their answers were actually the opposite. I only need Rakugo. As we just see Akane walk up, just stepping and walking towards the mat of the Zunin prize. As she just thinks, I don't need myself. As we just see, she walks towards the pillow, and she turns her head and just gives a smile to everyone in the audience. And it is amazing. It is this moment where we go from this flashback back to this white panel where we just see Akane walking on screen to a double page spread. No shadows, just Akane and the line work, looking back at the audience. As everybody immediately freaks out and like starts paying attention to Akane's performance. As Tyson just says to himself, play not the string, nah, you all don't get it. This show is only getting started. And that's where we end this chapter of Akane Banashi. Shonen Jump's best manga continues to be Shonen Jump's best manga. I'm going to go ahead and say it now. Akane Banashi was probably the best. There's no probably about it. Akane Banashi was the best chapter of manga this week. It's already going in stone. This chapter was amazing. There was so much to it. This whole idea of like Akane just has to last. She's not going to do anything important. And of course, we all know what to expect from Akane's performance. And if anything, one of the reasons I'm so happy that I'm so far behind on Jump is that I know at the current point I'm sitting at, Akane's performance has ended. And I cannot tell you how happy I am just to be able to sit down and read the entirety of Akane's performance, because I've been waiting for this for so long. We've got all this stuff built up about Shomei, this whole idea of like, don't waste time, because the people that you care about, the people that you want to show your medal to, may not always be around. And damn, I love Shiguma. I want Shiguma to see Akane's success. And even the panel that we see of Shiguma sitting in a hospital bed, he just looks frail and weak, and it's like, Shiguma, my heart goes out to you, man. Like, gosh. This chapter was just so emotionally charged. So much amazing, masterful work in this chapter. Just a round of applause to Yuki Suenaga and Takamasa Moe. The two of them just write a really good manga, and there's just nothing else to say. This was an amazing chapter of manga, right? Well, moving on, let's talk about Blue Box chapter number 211. This chapter is titled The Final Year. And there's not really too much else I want to talk about in this chapter of Blue Box. Really, it's Hina's birthday, so everybody goes around and hides some presents in the gymnasium for her. She runs around to go to try find all of these presents, right? Eventually, it's one of these whole idea where, she finds Taiki's present, and it's drinks or these jellies that she's been wanting to try for a while, right? And inside the package, there's a little note from Taiki just saying like, hey, congrats, Hina, let's both do our best, from Taiki, right? And also, Hina got a brand new phone case that she's been looking for, and the very end of the chapter is just Hina going through and putting this note in the back of her phone case, really just showing that she is not over this boy yet whatsoever, right? Also, as this happens, Yusa comes up Haruto comes up being like, hey, how's it going? Gives her a water, and also thinks about the whole thing of like, hey, I also need to focus on beating Taiki, because it is now his final year at this school. I need to do something about him, pretty much, right? Oh, did I mention that we learned that Chinatsu's neighbor knows knows Haruto's brother, Shuji Yusa? Yeah, fun fact, it seems like he plays badminton. That's going to be a fun reveal whenever we get more to it, but yeah. Very simple chapter of Blue Box, and also, I know I went through it a little bit quickly, but like, bro, I had talked about that Akane Banashi chapter. It was just too good. So, fun fact, guys, I just realized I just got through like an entire section of talking about the Elusive Samurai and Witch Watch and ranking all of my chapters, and I realized, oh boy, I forgot to unpause OBS to talk about these chapters. And while it was like a really good segment talking about that manga, I am very disappointed that I just forgot to unpause OBS. It's completely my fault. My voice was getting weird, worn, and rough and all of that. So it sort of really is what it is. I had a really good conversation about some of these chapters too, and I sort of feel bad I don't have it anymore, but as you see on my screen, I know, wow, a jump cut. This is how I ranked all the series this week. Let me quickly talk. The Elusive Samurai, very interesting chapter. It focused on this side character who wasn't really important. We thought they were going to be important in Takyuji's army. They weren't. Oh, wow, that's crazy. It ended off with Ayako being like, hey, we're getting ready to mess you up, Takyuji. I'm really disappointed I didn't record that. And then the whole Witch Watch chapter is about like this dating sim that Keigo made, self-inserts, all of this various stuff, bringing into a bigger point of like, hey, protect the people you love and you actually should romance everybody. And that was the whole joke of the Witch Watch chapter. And then I ranked all of my manga, talked about all of that, talked about my podcast discrepancies and viewer dynamics, and like, hey, there's a few of you who listen from Japan, and like, wow, that's pretty neat to see, and like, oh wow, women will listen to one of my other shows, but you guys aren't getting any of that. I messed up the video recording, and I have to go to class here in like 10 minutes. I can't spend our 20 minutes talking about those 3 manga chapters in the outro of this video. So for everybody who missed it, which was all of you, only I got to see that portion of this video. Akane Banashi ended up getting my chapter of the week, followed by Ichi the Witch, the Elusive Samurai, Himatin, Kagurabachi, Ultimate Excess Kyoshi, One Piece, Harukaze Mound, Ping Pong Peril, Jujutsu Kaisen Modulo, Blue Box, Witch Watch, Someone Hurts, and Ekinen Bros, followed up finally by Desscaras from Ichi the Witch as my character of the week. I promise you, there's a lot of interesting conversation about like, man, I want to put this chapter here because of the emotion I felt from it, and I had this very interesting conversation about like, hey, One Piece versus Ultimate Excess Kyoshi, which one do I like more for the level they have this week, right? One is about friendship and one's about warfare. I'm a shonen reader, I like friendship, so I put Ultimate Excess Kyoshi above One Piece, but oops, I forgot to hit the record button. You know what it is? But yeah, I know this final section has been like 2 minutes, but oops, Glowplasma messed up. Check out this podcast on podcasting platforms like Apple Podcasts, Spotify, all of those things, or on YouTube at Glowplasma. If you're listening to this, thank you. Oops. Hopefully I don't forget next time. I'll catch you guys next time for issue number 43 of 2025. I messed this video. I'm messing this video up bad, but I got to get to class and I've got to drive because I got to go home because I got a wedding to go to. What's going on here? I can't believe I did that. I'll catch you guys next time. This is Glowplasma signing out.